In the lecture 1 of Business Ethics and CSR, we spoke about the concept of values and the concept of ethics. We also briefly touched upon the meaning of society and what is meant by culture. And I tried to explain to you also why a study of value and ethics and culture and everything is important to us as human beings, as citizens of this country, and also why is it important for us when we eventually go out to work. How will a very good knowledge of these concepts will help us in interacting with other stakeholders, and how we will be able to succeed in understanding the perspective of the customer, the perspective of the vendors, the suppliers, our colleagues, and this will all help us in our professional life. Today we go further and we will work upon few more things. We will try to understand that what is meant by a dominant culture of a society, because whatever a society may have many sets of cultures, but there is one culture which will be a dominant set of culture. So what is dominant culture and how does it help, influence, and how does it shape the activities or the attitude of its citizenry? We will also try to understand what are values and norms, because after you have certain values, whether it is personal value or organization value, norms are set. We will also try to understand if there is any difference between value and ethics. Don't get too bothered if you don't understand it in the first reading of my presentations, or if you read the books and you don't understand. By and by you will see that these words are used interchangeably, values and ethics. But from the academic perspective, I will try to explain to you what is the difference or how are they separate. They are related, no doubt. They are related, no doubt, but they are separate. We will also try to understand if morals or values are same. Morals. He has very good moral value, we have heard people saying. Is moral equal to value? We will also try to discuss as what are the building blocks of value and culture. Where do value come from? The values come from somewhere, no? Whether they come from family, they come from school, from your teachers. And very interestingly, we will also try to understand if there are any universal values across the globe. Are there any set of values which are applicable to all societies across globe? We will try to understand. We will also understand the concept of organization culture. What is the organization culture and why is organization culture so important? So in today's lecture, we will go through all this. And remember, this is all in continuation of what we discussed in lecture 1 about collectivism and individualism, and I explained to you yesterday in the first lecture, how do people who have an individualistic approach in life, how do they differ in their behavior from people who have a collectivist approach in life? I hope you will enjoy the lecture. Thank you. As I explained earlier, we should understand what are the cultures of various societies. In a country there could be many cultures, but people, for example, say that the industrial climate in southern India is very good. That's why you see all the international companies, they have their plants of automobile or of automotive components and spare parts in southern India. because they say the culture, the work culture of the workers there is very good. The work culture at the factory is very good. You will find that most software companies, most BPOs, they are all in Bengaluru, in Hyderabad. And now of course they have started coming to Delhi also in the NCR sector, but it can't compare with the growth of this industry in Bengaluru and Hyderabad. Why? Because they say that the culture of the employees, the culture of these cities is very, very conducive to this industry. So you see, there could be dominant culture in one part of the country, and there could be some other culture which is dominant in some other part of the company. For example, when it comes to agriculture sector, most people seem to favor the states of Punjab and Haryana, because they say that the passion which people there exhibit towards farming is exemplary. You will find that Punjabis own vast tracts of farmlands in US and in Canada. Why? Because their culture seems to be liking the trade of agriculture. They are their own masters. They like to work very hard, but not under anyone's control. They don't want to be reporting to anyone. So they're very good at farming, and they take great pride in being the best farmer, and being a farmer whose per acre output is the maximum, or who has produced the best crop variety. So that is their culture. So the culture also influences what segment or what sector would flourish in that society. So this is dominant culture. So dominant values and beliefs, they are those which are widely shared among a community. So you will find, see, there is a culture in Punjab that everybody wants to go to Canada, as they say, Canada. So it's a dominant value and belief, you know. People like to go there. People have a particular vision of what happens there in Canada, how they can succeed. Okay. So this is the dominant culture. They want to go to a new country. They want to risk. They want to prove their worth in a foreign land. So dominant culture, it also influences many judgments people make. So if you are from a particular culture, it can also influence your sense of judgment. I was speaking to a gentleman who is a Bengali, and he owns 2 houses in Noida. And you know, both his houses were ready to be sublet. So he was looking for tenants. So I took him to a particular broker, and the broker suggested a few names. And he immediately said, if this gentleman belongs to this part of the country, I will not give him my house. See, he's scared that this guy will not, that if I give my house to this gentleman who belongs to this geographical area, when it will, at a time when he wants his house back, the tenant will not vacate that house. This is not the culture of that geographical area, but this is a belief. This is a belief which has been fed into the mind, drilled into the mind of my Bengali friend over the years. So they will say, if somebody is a South Indian, his English is very good. Why? Because he does not speak Hindi, so his English must be very good. Okay. So belief and values, they are formed throughout the course of our life, and they change over time. What influences the formation of these values and belief? These can be social, these can be political, these can be economical reasons, religious reasons, customs, practices. For example, if you see America, you know, the killing of a man who was an African American by a police person, it has raised It has raised so much stink. There were many protests all over the US. Black Lives Matter. That was the hashtag all over the Twitter. Because in America, a dominant culture in a society is that of a white majority group who wield much more power than the other groups. The dominant culture is white middle class. Protestant people of Northern America, they are the dominant people. But if you see the American culture, if you leave aside the racial aspect of the culture, if you see American culture, the general ideas of American culture means liberty. When you talk of America, equality. That is why so many protests. Although in reality, there are deep prejudices in the minds of many American people against African Americans. But what is the dominant culture, political culture, which everyone swears by? It is liberty, equality, democracy, individualism, unity, diversity, isn't it? That is what we say is the dominant culture of India. So, culture is something which becomes specific of a particular society. And culture can be something which can become largely specific to a nation. I will also tell you an example. During the 50s and the 60s, in Nigeria, which is the most populous country in Africa, and one of the largest countries, an economy is second or third largest after South Africa and perhaps Egypt. My father told me, if you landed in Lagos airport, people will think that you have come to join there as a teacher. And mostly they will feel that you are in Nigeria to teach mathematics or physics or chemistry. So this was the impression about India, because large number of teachers used to be there in Nigeria who were teachers, and most of them taught physics, chemistry and mathematics in schools and in colleges. And in their minds, Indians are studious, hardworking, very intelligent, very honest, and highly devoted to the cause of education. So, it is something which radiates positivity about India in that country. Hindi movies were very, very popular, very famous. The most popular song there was from a film called Das Numbri. You must not have heard of this film, Das Numbri. One of the most popular film star in Nigeria till date is Manoj Kumar and Shashi Kapoor. A lot of their movies used to be there. And Bollywood was the key player which used to spread the concept of Indian culture in those countries. Culture is very important because the way you behave in a society and the way your society behaves in general gives an impression about other people as to if they would like to deal with you and if they would not like to deal with you. I have explained to you the concept of dominant culture. I request you to correlate it with your own experiences. If you have ever come across a student who is from the foreign country, or if you have done any work, if you have come across, if you know about any culture, for example, if you know about the Spanish culture or the Brazilian culture, try to read about it, Google about it, and when we have our tutorials, we will discuss this more. What is meant by norm? Suppose you go to a railway station to see off somebody. You are required to buy a platform ticket. So if you are going to a railway station in New Delhi, most of you will buy a platform ticket to enter the railway station. But if you go to a smaller town, for example, I remember going to railway station many a times as a student to Jodhpur railway station, and I used to go to Jodhpur railway station to eat in the cafeteria there, to have my lunch there. As a rule, if you walk into the railway station, you must have either the ticket to travel, that means a train ticket, or you must have a railway station platform. You must have a platform ticket. But it was not the norm to go to the canteen or to the cafeteria to eat. You could go without buying a platform ticket. So although it was mandatory to enter the railway station with either a train ticket or a platform ticket, we used to go there almost every weekend to have our meals without buying a platform ticket. So not buying a platform ticket was a norm. It was not a rule. Okay, a norm can be a rule also. A norm, NORM, एक प्रणाली, रूल तो प्रणाली हो गया, नॉर्म एक जो रोजमर्रा में जो बिहेवियर होता है. It was when I was a student of Delhi University and I did my graduation in 1984. Every student used to have a DTC bus pass. So it was made, we could get a DTC bus pass for 12 rupee 50 paisa, and we didn't have to buy tickets, and there were no air conditioned buses then. But even if you forgot to take your pass one day, you could get into a bus and you could travel without buying a ticket or without having in your possession the DTC bus pass, because the conductor, you will tell him, I am from this college and I forgot to take my pass. Conductor will let you go, but he will tell you if there is a special checking, if you get caught, then I am not responsible. Okay, this is meant by norm. Norms, basically norms follow from values. So suppose among DTC drivers or conductors, Delhi DTC bus conductors, their core value is to discipline. Their core value is discipline. They will not allow anybody to ride without a ticket or without a pass. They will not allow you to enter the bus in case you don't have either of the two. But that value is not so strong. The value of discipline in enforcing, the value of discipline in enforcing that discipline is not that strong. So you can get into a bus. I am talking of those days. I don't know what happens nowadays, whether there is a DTC pass or not. So values and how dear you hold those values, they are reflected in the society, the norms of the society. So let's take an example. Let us take India, the city of Agra. City of Agra depends upon hospitality sector. Number of guests who visit that. They come, they see Taj, and then they go and see the Lal Killa, and then they go to Fatehpur Sikri. Then because of this, the transportation business does well, the hotel business does well, the business of selling of artifacts does well. Okay, and people come, they buy petha also from there. Petha is a traditional sweet of Agra. So if you see, if the emphasis on hospitality, then the behavior of the people is also courteous, at least towards the visitors or towards the tourists. And if you go to Dwarka in Gujarat, because it's a religious place, Dwarka, भगवान कृष्ण की जो नगरी है, जो समुद्र में समा गई है, if you go there, there are many homes which double up as food joints. You can enter that house and ask for food, and you can leave whatever money you want to leave. So people normally, but they are very hospitable. Even if there is no food there, they will cook their food and serve it to you. In such places, gift giving is also very normal because they place great value on hospitality. So what is the culture? What is the value? The value is hospitality. It reflects in cultural norms. मेरी बात समझ गए? वैल्यू जो चीज होती है वो नॉर्म्स पे रिफ्लेक्ट करती है और ये डिफरेंट कल्चर्स में वेरी करती है. इफ यू गो टू राजस्थान, when you enter the house they will say padharo sa, when you leave the house they will say padharo sa. It is their culture, they are so hospitable, they don't want to say leave us. They don't want to say leave this house. So when you come they will say padharo sa, when you are going they will say padharo sa. It's a norm there. Because what is the core value? Core value is being humble, hospitable, humility. It is reflected in this behavior that when you come you say padharo sa, when you go you say padharo sa. Isn't it? So norms, this is what I mean by values and norms. Let me give you another interesting example. ये एग्जाम्स में कॉपी करते हैं. आपने देखा होगा पीछे एक प्रदेश की हमारे बहुत वीडियो बनी थी, एक के ऊपर एक चढ़ के फर्रे या खर्रे पास हो रहे थे. Let me give you an example, and I have personally experienced it. What will be the reaction of copying in an exam in Britain, in India and in Russia? In India, if you are in Delhi, NCR, somewhere, the response will be, people will be quite angry. You may get caught and you could be barred from appearing in or finishing the examination. In Britain, it would be outrageous. There will be outrage. बवाल हो जाएगा. बवाल हो जाएगा, बवाल. People will be outraged. In Russia, people will be surprised if they are outraged. भाई इतना क्यों चिल्ला रहे हो? कॉपी तो कर रहे हैं, नकल ही तो मार रहे हैं, नकल नहीं कॉपिंग कर रहे हैं. Because the value, the greatest value in a communist Russia is to help each other to pass the exam. This reflection of value. Camaraderie. They are all comrades. Okay? So you need to help one another. So if I don't have money, I seek the help of my friend, or I help him or he helps me. Similarly, if I am having a problem in examination, I am free to seek the help of my friend and he is free to help me. So what is this outrage? ये क्या आप कर रहे हैं कि कॉपी नहीं कर सकते? Because in Russia the value is, note it down, collective problem solving is the value. Collective problem solving is the value. Individualism is not the value. The examination is there so that everyone can pass that exam. Examination is a selection process, it is not a rejection process. So I have explained to you values and how values get reflected in various norms. And believe me, all these examples I have given, I have not given them from a book. I am telling you, I have spoken to the academicians in these countries. I have been to these countries and I know their culture, I know their values and how it is reflected in norms. Are you getting my point? Why is it important for you to understand? Because you could be working, you could be born and brought up in a particular culture, and then you go to some other culture, and then you should not get the cultural shock. You must understand the importance of culture, values, cultures, and how it is reflected in norms. In this slide and in the next slide, we would like to discuss something about morals. Morals versus values. See, these things are semantics. One should not get too much confused by these things. They are all interrelated. Moral and values, they are part of behavioral aspect of a person. There is not much difference between the two, and they are both correlated. Okay? Morals are formed by inborn values. Moral is a system of belief that is taught for deciding good or bad. They are emotionally related beliefs or something that comes from within. Morals have more social value and acceptance than value itself. You know, one is said to be immoral if he does not have good morals, but there is no such word for anybody who does not have values. So, morals are generally related to one's religious, business or politics, whereas values are personal. They are personal fundamental beliefs or principles. Your religion would have taught you a moral value of piety, daya, that you should be kind to people. So, that is a moral which has been taught to you. So, suppose you are a judge and you have to decide how much to punish an offender, and then your value will come into play, because although moral, क्षमा एक बहुत अच्छा गुण है, लेकिन क्या आप सारे अपराधियों को क्षमा कर सकते हो? नहीं कर सकते. Then it is your personal values. Law of the land क्या है? What are the previous judgments in such cases? It is here that your values will come into play. So what I am trying to say is that morals are different than values, but they are not too different. Moral is something which comes mainly from your religious training or something. Value is something which you make for yourself personally. If you remember, in the teaser presentation I gave you the example of one of the most celebrated characters of Mahabharata, Pitamaya Bhishma. He had taken a vow that he will always support the king of Hastinapur. He will fight for the king of Hastinapur. That was his value. But his value was against the moral. King of Hastinapur that time was Dhritarashtra, the blind king, whose son Duryodhan was the root, who was the root cause of the Mahabharata because of his greediness. But his value was that he had taken a vow that he will remain loyal to the king of Hastinapur and he will fight for the king of Hastinapur, even if king of Hastinapur was fighting against the forces of dharma, and even if king of Hastinapur was representing the evil forces. So his personal value overruled his morals, right? Another difference we have to discuss here is value versus ethics. Sometimes a question is asked, what is the interrelationship between values and ethics? See, values are basic beliefs that an individual thinks to be true. Ethics is generally guideline or rule that are set for society or organization rather than individual. बस इतना आपको समझ लेना है. Values are largely personal for individual, and ethics are guidelines which are set for society or an organization. If values can be said to be guiding principles in one's life, then ethics can be defined as rules which are formulated by a country or a company or some institutions. So ethics also depends upon moral values. So you don't have to get confused between what is ethics, what is values. These things are what are morals. These are used interchangeably. But you have to understand that ethics are normally based upon a society or an organization. Let me give you an example. Suppose you are the district magistrate. And you have a discretionary fund which can be used only for people who fall in the category of scheduled tribe, people from tribal areas. That fund can be used only for the betterment of those people. You come across a genuine candidate who does not belong to, who is not a tribal person, but is equally needy, and he equally qualifies to get the grant, except that he is not a tribal. Your morals can tell you that you need to help this person because he is needy, equally deserving, and there is no other candidate who is from a tribal background. and he is the only one available. But your values, your ethics, organizational ethics will tell you that you cannot break the rule of the person. It may be a very justifiable cause, but if you are not empowered, if you don't have discretionary power to break that rule, you cannot break that rule. Perhaps you need to put it in black and white. You need to ask your seniors, or you need to ask your manager or the appropriate authority, sir, here is a candidate who's not a scheduled tribe, but he is deserving of this grant or this aid. Can I extend the aid to him? Or is there a method by which you can officially extend this aid to this person after taking appropriate approvals? Organizational ethics. You understand? So I hope I have been able to tell you about values and ethics and morals. The most vital question is, where do values come from? First and foremost, your personal values, lasting beliefs. First, it comes from family. The impact of your parents on you, especially your mother, because if you spend most of your time with your mother, and if your mother is very affectionate, very loving, if you find a lizard on the wall and you want to kill that lizard, and your mother says, no, don't kill that lizard, because the lizard also is a living being. It's also a creature of God. And when you are small, you will always adhere to what your mother has said. So you will develop a value of kindness towards other living beings, even if the other living being is not a human, non-human. If you have an elder brother who routinely beats up the dogs, you will not have a value which asks you to be kind towards canine or the dogs or other animals. After family, peers, social influence is very high. It also impacts your value. So peer pressure is very high on students. So should you talk back to your class teacher? And if you are in a group of students, you normally like to hang around, who believe that it is fashionable to talk back to your students, but you have not been brought up in such a family atmosphere. Initially you will resist, but gradually it is possible. If you are not true to your values, you could fall victim and you could lose your original values. Values also come from workplace. I came across a former army officer who joined an organization after retirement, and the hallmark of the organization was indiscipline, breaking rules, to be at loggerheads with your seniors, and to try and squeeze the work out of workers. The army officer, who came from a very disciplined background and who was truly a great leader, soon realized the futility of imposing his value system in the organization where he was not the supreme leader. He was a middle rung leader, and he fell into line. He also inculcated the organizational values of that organization. Values also come from your educational institutions. If you went to a school which was a school of snooty people, which disrespected people who were poorer than you, your fellow students placed premium on worldly things, then you are likely to develop value which is commensurate with the value which your peers or which your fellow colleagues or your friends, which they exhibit. Values also come from religion. Very strange but true, values can be influenced by music. Values can be influenced by media. So if you watch Republic TV every day for 1 hour, you will develop a value which will say that if more louder you speak. I'm a great fan of that channel, by the way. I like Arnab quite a lot. But I'm telling you about the nature of the discussions and the tone of the arguments there. It is, you need to outshout the other guy. You will get a different set of value. You will feel that as if to be able to shout is the best way to be able to communicate your point of view. Technology is known to have changed values. Major historical events can change values. Look at what happened to Japan. Japan used to be a country, people used to laugh at Japan. They were so backward in terms of technology. But after the World War II, when Japan was decimated, it changed the culture of Japanese. They said we need to survive, we need to be strong, we need to be disciplined, we need to work extra hard. There was a time when if Japanese workers had to go on a protest, they will not go on strike, but they will work 2-3 hours more. So this is what metamorphosis of a nation. Value. Values can come from anything. Significant life events can change values. A death in the family, a divorce in the family, losing a job, a major accident, a trauma can lead to change in values. So we have often seen that if the breadwinner of the family dies, leaving a widow and young children, and if they are in dire straits and if they are in really troubled times, the values can change of the young boys and girls. Values hence come from all these places. Are there any building blocks to values and ethics and culture? So there is a kind of a pyramid. At the bottom edge, there is culture, religion, tradition. At the bottom edge. From above this bottom of the pyramid, there is a second layer which is of morals and values. So morals and values come from your culture, from your religion, from your tradition. From morals and values comes the concept of virtues. Achhai kya hai? Rights. What are standards? What are policies? So organization, moral and values, they will give rise to organizational standards and organization policies. And on top is ethics, which is a set of guidelines, a set of values. So this is a building block. Culture, values and ethics. Are there any universal values? Universal value means, are there any values, universal moral values across the globe, across all civilizations? Are there any values which are true for Indians, for Africans, for South Americans, from North Americans, for Europeans, for Chinese, for Australians, for New Zealanders, Kiwis, people living in Antarctica, if any? Are there any universal values? Interesting question. University of Oxford in UK, they analyzed ethnographic accounts of at least 60 societies, and the sample size was around 600,000, so 6 lakh people across 60 societies. They were interviewed, and based upon that, there are 7 universal values which have been found in this study. So whether there are some universal moral values or morals are only relatives. So this is a debate between moral universalists and moral relativists. Universalists, which say there are universal values, and relativists. It has been going on for centuries. But Oxford, thanks to Oxford University research, there are 7 basic values. First and foremost, help your family. हेल्प योर फैमिली, अपने परिवार के सदस्यों की मदद करो. सेकंड इज हेल्प योर ग्रुप. थर्ड इज रिटर्न फेवर्स. If somebody has done good to you and if he is in trouble, help him. Helping your family, helping your group, returning favors. Fourth is being brave. Sahasi bano. Being brave. Being brave. Fifth is deferring to supervisors. जो आपके सीनियर्स हैं, जो आपके मैनेजर्स हैं, जो आपके सुपरवाइजर्स हैं, उनका सम्मान करो. Deferring to them. Sixth is dividing resources fairly. If you are a father, you have to divide the resources fairly among all the siblings. ये नहीं कि बड़े बेटे को ही सब कुछ दे दो. पिक्चरों में जैसा दिखाते हैं ना. So dividing resources fairly. Similarly, in a village, resources have to be divided fairly. If you are living in a housing society, when the water tanker comes, it has to be divided equally. It cannot be first come first serve basis. Or it cannot be that anybody who cannot stand in the queue, who is physically unable to stand in the queue, will not get a share of water. It has to be divided fairly. Respecting other people's property. Everything, if you go to high court, if you go to lower courts or even Supreme Court, all litigations, mostly they are centered around property. So if you have to respect other people's property. In a village, you cannot go and start farming on someone else's land. So these are 7 universal values. Helping your family, number 1. Number 2, helping your group. Number 3, returning favors. Number 4 is being brave. Number 5, deferring to your superiors. Number 6, dividing resources fairly. And number 7, respecting others' property. These are 7 universal values. Courtesy the research done by Oxford University. So the debate between moral universalists and moral relativists has hopefully come to an end, that yes, there are some universal values, and I challenge all of you. You cannot find fault. No sane person will dispute these 7 values. What is meant by organization culture? More importantly, why is organization culture important? First of all, culture is something, it cannot be counted. You cannot say this company has profit after tax so many crore rupees or so many $1 million. Culture is invisible. It can't be touched, it can't be smelled, it can't be seen, it can be felt. So in private sector, when people switch from one company to other company, आज आप इस कंपनी में गए, फिर दूसरी कंपनी में गए, फिर तीसरी में गए, you will say this company's culture is different from this company's culture, is different from this company's culture, depending upon how the company treated you fairly or unfairly, depending upon how you saw how the company treated its workers, how it treated its vendors. I will give you an example. I was the chief operating officer of a telecom infrastructure company. So we used to build telecom towers. You know telecom towers, the masts जिसके ऊपर ये antennas और ये सब लटके रहते हैं. And we were, it was a startup when I joined, and we became number 3 in West Africa. So I went to a project manager of a company for whom we are working, and I invited him for a dinner to my house. And he was also an Indian. He was younger to me, and he told me, I don't take lunch with contractors. What did he tell me? I don't take lunch, I don't eat lunch with my contractors. I was very hurt. He was my neighbor. He was in the neighborhood. He was my neighbor. He was an Indian. And I made this offer to him on an Independence Day celebration at Nigeria, at Indian High Commission in Lagos. And he gave me this answer. Many years later, I found a situation came where this particular gentleman, he was without a job, and I was on the selection panel, and he came and he applied for a position. And he and some other candidate, they both had equal marks. So I was the chairman of that selection committee and it was left to me to decide. So I'll not tell you whether we selected this guy or not, but I dug out that this person was not such an unfriendly person. In other set of culture, it was that organization culture in that company which dictated that you should treat your business associates with suspicion. You should not go and have lunch with them, even if they are inviting to a social occasion. That person's culture was not like that, I found out by my own way. So in 1980s there was a book, it was called In Search of Excellence. It was a book by I think Peterson Waterman, and this book said, they made an argument that a company's success can be attributed to organizational culture that was decisive, customer oriented, employee friendly, empowering, people oriented. And it said culture, organization culture, which is invisible, it is largely a defining factor in the success of an organization. So since 1980s, culture has become very, very important. And you will attest to what I am saying is, if you work in different companies, you will understand what I mean. It has been argued also that organizations that have a rare and hard to imitate organization culture, but it is positive culture. And if the organization has a culture that the organization vibrates positivity and there is radiance on the face of the people, such organizations do well. Culture is way more powerful tool of controlling your people, managing your people behaviors than any set of rules. If your educational institute has a culture of respect for one another, that organization will be a disciplined organization. Culture is the key. In this video lecture, we have built upon how we started earlier from values, then we talk about culture, and then we talked about societies, and then we talked about dominant culture, we talked about individualism, collectivism, we talked about morals, and eventually we have all come down to organization culture. Why organization culture matters? It matters because it has been proven that top organizations, excellent organizations, are excellent because of their excellent culture. This is what I want all of you to understand. Thank you.